Howdy y'all, and welcome to Political Eyes. Today's video is not one I was looking forward to making, but since this is America, I figured it was only a matter of time. This is Context with Chris. On Monday, May 25th, George Floyd, an unarmed 46-year-old black man, he was killed after Minneapolis police officers detained him by using their knee to compress his neck into the pavement for over 8 minutes. In the video recorded by Nardella Frazier and placed on her Facebook page, for over 4 minutes you hear George Floyd repeatedly tell the officers the infamous words, "I can't breathe." Bystanders echo George's words to the police. For 4 whole minutes, every single person watching knows the situation. George Floyd is completely in police custody, and he's slowly being suffocated to death. Then, just after 4 minutes, we all watch as George makes a small grunting sound and then stops moving altogether. Bystanders start screaming for the officers to check his pulse, to check if he's breathing, and nothing. No reaction. The officer with his knee on George's neck just continues to stare him down, clearly seeing the same thing the world sees. George Floyd is dying because his knee is making it so he can't breathe. For the next 4 additional minutes, the officer never takes his knee off George's neck, as George doesn't resist, he doesn't move, he doesn't breathe. For 4 whole minutes. Now, if you think this video is going to be bashing the police, it's not. Police officers have some of the most noble and dangerous jobs on the planet. Most are great people trying to do great things for the communities where they live and they work. And they know that every day what it takes to keep our lives safe could be the very thing that ends theirs. Every day they go to a workplace where they are underpaid, understaffed, and overworked, just to be surrounded by memorials of their fellow co-workers, their friends. Most are incredible people. Most. This video isn't talking about the good ones. This is for the bad ones. The one that's to keep their knees on George Floyd's neck for 4 minutes after his lifeless body stops moving. See, America, specifically white America, will quickly jump into 2 camps. One camp gives us this, which is noble and helpful to know you've got an ally. The other gives us this, which in the correct setting is also correct. But here's what white America is missing. This headline is upsetting, but it's this one that hurts the most. It's not the one where Terrence Crutcher is killed by an officer as his hands are up and he's surrounded by 4 of them. It's the one where Officer Betty Shelby is acquitted. It's not the one where Philando Castile is killed by an officer as he reaches for the identification he was asked to present. It's the one where Officer Geronimo Yanez is acquitted. It's not the one where Michael Brown is killed by an officer after being stopped for jaywalking. It's the one where Officer Darren Wilson is acquitted. It's not the one where Eric Garner is killed by an officer using a similar knee compression tactic for suspicion of selling loose, untaxed cigarettes on a sidewalk. It's the one where Daniel Pantaleo is acquitted. Yes, the deaths are sad, and there'll be outrage at the pure headline, "White officer kills black person." That's gonna happen. But the thing most of white America gets wrong is that the black community has experienced this since the days of slavery. A black person, especially a young black male, being killed because a white person felt threatened by them isn't anything new. What is new, though, the fact that there are cameras everywhere, and now people can see what actually happened and still reach the conclusion the officer was justified. What's new now is the amount of people so quick to back the blue or scream "Blue Lives Matter" purely because of the uniform or some memory that all cops are like Andy Griffith. What's new now is watching people disregard what their eyes see because of what their heart believes. Now, this is Context with Chris, so I want to add some context to the arguments most used by both the officers in these trials and the general public that blindly defends them. They felt threatened, and they had to make a split-second decision. It's easy to say, well, in the moment they had to make a split-second decision. I would have done the same myself. Sure, so would I. But neither I nor the average citizen have hours worth of training and years of experience in these situations. Most of us don't go to work every day knowing we may have to kill someone. We don't get trained in multiple ways to approach a suspect and defuse a situation. We don't have a utility belt full of non-lethal options. We don't have other units, police dogs, or armor for our protection. And when it comes to making a split-second decision, look at the examples used earlier in this video. These interactions didn't start with bank robbers or terrorists that they ran upon. They started with jaywalking, simple traffic stops, or misidentification. These officers choose to make bad decisions. They're not randomly put in situations they're not trained or armed for. And again, I'm not saying all or even most cops are bad, but if any other employee made a bad decision in a situation they were trained for, they'd be a bad employee. In this case, they're bad police officers. And while we rightly celebrate the good ones, when the bad ones mess up and kill someone, they should go to jail. Is it harsh? Sure, but that's the responsibility of the job. No one is dead when we miscalculate a forecast, put the supplies in the wrong place, or forget a tool somewhere. When you're on a pedestal, the fall from grace is much further. And for the one that makes me the most nauseous, I felt threatened for my life, it's really one simple thing, and I'm about to set the internet ablaze. If you support police officers and want to make them safer, then you should be at the forefront for stronger gun control. Plain and simple. When an officer, good or bad, says they felt threatened for their life, they don't mean because the suspect was pulling out a puppy. They mean a gun. You know it, I know it, they know it, the jury knows it. And when you know every single person you encounter has easy access to a gun simply because they live in America, that makes every other option on your police belt completely pointless. What good is pepper spray versus a gun? What good is a baton or a taser if the suspect might have a gun? What good is waiting an extra half a second to determine what exactly is in their hand if it might be a gun? No, the inanimate object that is the gun doesn't kill anyone. The person does. But look at how many people are killed simply because the officer assumed they had a gun. Remember, the headline reads, "White officer kills unarmed black man," not "officer makes a justified kill of an armed assailant." Yes, tactics should be reevaluated. Yes, we should have more police officers. Yes, people should just comply and respect police officers when asked. But not complying shouldn't result in death. Not complying is what all the other stuff on their belts and the years of training are for. Not complying doesn't give way to murder. To truly keep a safer mindset of police officers, keeping guns out of more people's hands, regardless of their skin color, has to be a priority. For the Black Lives Matter crowd, and even the Blue Lives Matter crowd, there is some hope that has to be recognized. Colin Kaepernick first knelt on September 1st, 2016. Since then, there have been numerous high-profile instances where officers have been convicted for killing unarmed Americans. In Dallas, Texas, Officer Amber Geiger was found guilty of murder and received a sentence of 10 years in prison. She walked into the wrong apartment and killed 26-year-old Botham Jean, thinking he was a burglar. Former South Carolina police officer Michael Slager was sentenced to 20 years in prison after he pled guilty to violating Walter Scott's civil rights. He shot him in the back as Walter ran away. Slager was the textbook case of making a split decision and fearing for his life. Thankfully, a video from a cell phone showed otherwise. Another one out of Texas, former Texas police officer Roy Oliver was sentenced to 15 years in prison for shooting into a car of high schoolers and killing Jordan Edwards. Roy claimed he felt for his partner's life, even though his partner, Officer Tyler Gross, testified he didn't. Officer Jason Van Dyke was convicted of second-degree murder for the 2014 fatal shooting of Laquan McDonald. Van Dyke shot the black teenager 16 times. Nashville's Officer Andrew Delk and Fort Worth's Officer Aaron Dean are both on separate trials for killing they were responsible for. There is some change happening, but it's slowly. I titled this video George Floyd. It's like OJ all the time, because many people who watch this can't comprehend what this is like for the black community. It's hard to comprehend how you can watch George Floyd be suffocated to death and know every other black person you know has the same feeling of despair you do. To know all those older than you have seen it before, and all those younger than you will unfortunately have to learn the same pain. It's hard to comprehend how a simple traffic stop can end your life, or how the vague description of black male, age 20 to 35, average height, last seen in the downtown area, means simply reaching for your phone near a bad cop can end your life. It's hard to comprehend how, in spite of overwhelming evidence and complete wrongdoing, the justice system fails you and someone can get away with murder. But for one afternoon on October 3rd, 1995, the majority of America did feel that way. They understood that feeling of the justice system letting them down. They watched as a family overcome with grief was left with no resolution. And then they watched the suspects celebrate and go on with their life as if nothing happened. There was outrage, there was sorrow, there was despair. Now, imagine George Floyd is like OJ all the time. This has been Contacts with Chris.